We are not going back to the Flintstone era, where they use shiny rocks for payment. The digital age is here to stay, whether you like it or not. And I actually underline that, whether you like it or not. The sooner you realize this fact, the better off you'll be. Cheers to those who have figured it out. Cheers to you. Cheers to us. We have figured it out because technology only moves one way. Just take a second here and think about it. Do you think that we're ever going to go back to writing out checks and cashing those at the bank? Do you think we're ever going to go back to carrying around a bunch of coins in our pockets and fake plastic bills in our pockets when we have this thing in our phone that can do all this for us? All of it for us. And so what I'm going to talk about today, just kind of piggybacking off of that, is I'm going to talk about how different the future is going to look and kind of how we're transitioning into that already and why Bitcoin's going to win in every aspect of this. And then, of course, not just talking about things, but talking about what we can do to prepare for that. So think about it. Let's put ourselves in because this is kind of my theory on this show, is that I think that in 10 years from now, or sooner than that, I think that we're going to have a totally different dynamic in terms of place. I don't think we're going to have employees. I don't think we're going to have employers. I think that everybody is basically going to be their own boss. Everybody's going to have their own business, and it might look a lot differently. And actually, before we get to the rest of this stuff, I do want to share a clip here. Good thing I thought of that because it wasn't on my list, but I do have it ready to go. So before we go any further into that, I'm going to show this clip and see what you think about it. This is talking about entrepreneurs and Bitcoin and kind of what the future is going to look like. So this is Bobby Schell talking about businesses in Bitcoin and what the future of entrepreneurship will look like. So here we go.
Yeah, tying it back to Bitcoin, like I think one of the reasons why, again, everyone wants to hold Bitcoin right now because that's the main wealth transfer that we're all interested in. Like we discovered a new form of money. It's far superior. It's worth a lot more than $50,000 or whatever it's trading today. So people are just kind of sitting on their hands holding Bitcoin. I feel like, and let me know if you agree or disagree with this, that as Bitcoin becomes adopted and maybe Bitcoin reaches gold parity or, obviously significantly higher, but starting there, maybe then when the upside potential is significantly less, we're going to see a lot more entrepreneurship from early Bitcoiners because then they're like, okay, now I'm sitting on this newfound wealth. I can keep holding Bitcoin, but the returns aren't going to be, a CAGR of 50% just sitting on cold storage Bitcoin. Maybe it'll be down to 10% or 20% or whatever. Like Saylor says, the 14% as his like long-term
Yeah.
return. Is that when, once the return is less, the expected future return is less, is that when people are going to go out there and acquire all these SMBs or invest in startups?
Yeah. I think people who are entrepreneurs and like the risk and like owning a business, like there's people who like I know a guy on Twitter, he acquired an HVAC company and he's since acquiring it a year and a half ago, it's grown 160%. So that guy is destroying Bitcoiners, you know. But are you the type of person who can do that? You really have to ask yourself that question. But to your first point, when the price goes up to 500K, will more people step into entrepreneurship? I believe yes. And there's two reasons. One, whenever that much value is locked in Bitcoin and it's not moving, the government will likely offer tax incentives. It's just like with real estate, like they have these incentives like bonus depreciation, cost segregation studies, so that these people who are taking risks can reduce their tax consequence and continue more investment now into the future. Same thing with the 1031 exchange. Whenever you sell an asset and you roll it into another one, it frees capital up so that now that you've lived in this for a while or you improved it, whatever your story is, you now can like move into another asset and do it again. Like this is how the government gets money to move in tax efficient ways. The same thing is going to come to Bitcoin. They're going to see that these like just normal everyday people or rich, regardless, have so much wealth locked up. They're going to say, hey, when you go to spend it, no taxes. When you go invest in small businesses, no taxes. When you go to do whatever, and they're going to give people an incentive to get rid of it. And the other thing, I think over this time frame, a lot of folks, like over the next 10 years, they're going to continue trying to level up their job, their skills, and they're going to build skill sets that make them more likely to be an entrepreneur. Like every day, like if you're not growing your skills, there's people in other parts of the world that are going to replace you for a much lower cost. Like there are so many people in other countries that are way better workers than a lot of people I've worked with in America. And it's pretty neck breaking. It's happening. And I think a lot of folks are going to be very intentional to build new skill sets. And after doing so, and after getting price appreciation in Bitcoin, they're going to say, I can do this. You know, I can be an entrepreneur. And they're going to take that leap. So I'm with you 100% on that, man. It's totally going to happen.
Yeah. Do you think that new technology and things like AI?
So it's pretty interesting to listen to that, because that's kind of what I've been talking about on the show here for the last couple months, for sure. That's kind of been the theme of this whole show, is that it's one thing to buy Bitcoin and hold on to it, but the real fun part of this and how people are actually going to change their lives in a positive way is by launching businesses in Bitcoin. And so I want you to change your mindset a little bit in terms of, like, when we think of starting a business or what would you call it, a startup, people think it has to be very like Facebooky or the brand new idea of the world that's going to change everything, and you're going to do it for a couple of years and then you're going to sell out and then you're going to retire at age 25. That's kind of the mentality I think that we've had for like the last 10 or 15 years through this tech bubble that we've had. And I think that we need to change our mindset in terms of whatever it is that you do, whatever skills you have, that's what the business you're going to have. Because let's take a step back here and let's think about what things look like today, what things look like 10 years ago, and what we kind of think things will look like 10 years from now. So let's think about this. What in the past, what brought us to the whole employee 9 to 5, going to work for somebody else, getting paid every 2 weeks? Why was that normalized? Well, it's because we didn't have the technology to do better than that. That's the best that we could do. So I got about 4 or 5 things here that I want to talk about in terms of how the barriers, I guess you'd say, in terms of starting a business, what they were versus what they are now.